presentation in English, but most of the audience is Japanese. I'm sorry, I'd like to speak in Japanese. 日本語で
Okay, so please allow me to speak in Japanese. So I am an internist. I'm a doctor, practicing doctor. And I have been involved in providing support and care after the accident. At the time of the Great Hanshin earthquake, I went there. I was still a young doctor, and in an evacuation center, I was providing medical support to the affected people. And this time around, Great East Japan earthquake and after the Fukushima accident, I thought very hard about what I can do from Tokyo as well as from Saitama. And as I thought about it, a lot of evacuees actually came to Saitama from Fukushima. And because my university is in Saitama, I became a member of a private support organization. And through that organization, I ran some academic research. And from there, I would like to provide you with some information and my consideration. The title of my presentation is Social Abuse Caused by Structural Violence, Scientific Proofs of Mental Health Impact of the Fukushima Nuclear Disaster. So we had that nuclear accident and 150,000 people were forced into evacuation. So what we did was a large-scale survey, and we did that every day after the accident. I am an expert in medical anthropology and also human science. That's another perspective I used to run qualitative as well as quantitative survey. And as a co-sponsor of this survey is the SSN Shinsai Shien Network Saitama, together with NHK, which is the Japanese Broadcasting Corporation Fukushima branch. And this is the largest ever survey conducted together with Japan Broadcasting Corporation, which was actually broadcast on their channel, conducted in 2015. So I'm focusing on post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. After an accident and war and conflict and crime, when a person feels his or her life is threatened, much stress is being caused. And it's a kind of a traumatic experience and a very strong feeling of fear as well as the apathy is being felt. And flashback is one symptom, and that's called intrusion symptom, and also nightmare and severe anxiety, and avoidance type of symptoms, as well as the arousal symptoms, which is not being able to fall asleep. These symptoms are being observed under PTSD. And this is what is called impact of event scale revised version, IESR. And this carries 25 items in this questionnaire. And through this questionnaire, you can measure severity or intensity of PTSD symptoms. So psychiatric symptoms are not necessarily visible, but then through this instrument, we can visualize the symptoms of a psychiatric disorder. And this is the result of the surveys run in the past 4 years. In 2012, we did this only in Saitama for victims and evacuees. And then in 2013, we targeted the evacuees in Fukushima as well as in Tokyo. And in 2013 as well. And in 2014, we did this in Saitama. And then in 2015, we did this survey targeting all of these evacuees across Japan. And this was done together with NHK, a broadcaster, and this was the largest survey ever. And we targeted around 16,000 or 17,000, of which the response was obtained from around 3,000 people. I would like to show you the results from the largest survey done in 2015. And the potential PTSD ISR, the average rate was 30. when it's over 25, it indicates the possibility of PTSD, and then if the score is over 30, a clinical response is necessary. And then the rate of exceeding 25 in 2012, which is a year after the accident, was 67%, and 2 years later 65%, and the year after 60%, and after 4 years it was 58%, and in 2015 it was 53%. So it is on the declining trend. However, there are still more than 50% of the people who are under quite severe and intense stress. So we divided people into a different category in terms of stress, in terms of areas to measure stress in each group. And then this is a categorization. For the first 3 years, we looked at stress across different areas in terms of evacuation status, and there was no significant difference. However, in the 4th year after the accident, there was significant difference. 52% was PTSD possibility for the areas that the residents have difficulty returning, and 40% for areas to which evacuation orders are ready to be lifted, and 30% for previous emergency evacuation areas where they can already return, and 43% for those people who are so-called voluntary evacuees. So difficulty returning area and also voluntary evacuation, which does not have compensation. In these two groups, the stress level was at the highest. And the reason for that may be this. So difficulty returning areas, and according to categories of areas, there was a huge difference in terms of the compensation money that people can receive. And these are the photos I took from Tomioka town. This is at the border of a difficult to return area. And there is a sign which says that from here on you can't step in because it is an area designated as difficulty returning. And with this barricade, people are divided. And that this is a difference of only several meters. And of course, there may be some difference in radiation exposure, but the compensation money is very much different. The difference is twice as much or even more. And also, because of this division, how people can plan for their future may be affected greatly. And this is the flash report from this year compared to the last year. And it's we can't have apple-to-apple comparison here, but let's just assume that we are comparing more or less the same groups of people. So as for difficulty returning, it's in red, and then voluntary evacuation is in white, and then we see some decline in numbers. However, in this particular area where the orders are ready to be lifted, the number increased all of a sudden, because during this 1 year, and next year in March, orders will be lifted, and this was announced. And I think this announcement, which came out of the blue, probably stressed those people. So evacuation policies have very clear effect on the stress level of the people. So this is about multifactorial logistic regression analysis. It's a kind of statistical method. And this is in order to identify what kind of factors are contributing to the levels of stress of the people. So the fear of death right after the nuclear power plant accident, and also lost hometown, and also traumatic experience at the evacuation place, and also nobody to turn to, and some difficulty about family relationship, and also concern about livelihood. So these are psychiatric things, and other things are lack of social support, and there are other concerns about the economy. And all of these factors are kind of intertwined to put pressure on people. For instance, the person may have the concern about livelihood, and then the possibility for that person to develop PTSD is twice as high compared to the person who doesn't have a livelihood concern. So now talking about the kind of anthropological their considerations, and I would like to focus on the term structural violence. So this was actually advocated by Paul Farmer, which is the medical anthropologist. Pathologies of Power was the book written by this person. Haiti. He was active in medical care in Haiti, and he is a medical anthropologist. And he used this concept, structural violence, to look into the poverty and also a gap and disparity of health in the Haitian people. So this structural violence was advocated by Johan Galtung in the area of peace studies. So structural violence is something that is embedded in social structure and social institution. And this is expressed in the form of discrimination in terms of livelihood and life. So those victims of Fukushima accident, my assumption is that those people are exposed to structural violence. But this is just the upper structure, because for structural violence, there are other kind of substructures that exist. For instance, the economic policy of the government promoting nuclear power usage. Number 2, inequality of wealth distribution generated by preferential economic measures for big corporations. Number 3 is the structural geopolitical exploitation of antagonism between central and countryside. Number 4, the structure of social disparity based on the competition led by neoliberalism. Number 5, the rejection of social responsibility by the self-responsibility theory of medical and social services. Number 6, the post-war usage of national security as a justification for the peaceful use of nuclear energy. So this is substructure causing nuclear disaster and accident. So from now on, I would like to introduce to you 3 cases. So these cases were reported in free writing space in a survey that we provided, and those 3 cases contributed with a lot of things written in the free space. So this case 1 was forced evacuee case. He evacuated from Futaba town, Futaba County, Fukushima Prefecture, and it's she actually. She is in Saitama Prefecture, Soka City. And this lady is taking care of 90-year-old father and 85-year-old mother in a very small apartment. Her father sits all day around kotatsu, a Japanese low-covered table, and then the mother just sweeps in front of the house in the morning, but all the rest of the time she just sits around the kotatsu as well. So what's written by this person is that nobody visits us, and we don't go anywhere. And we just eat 3 times a day, and all the rest we just sleep. We have nothing to do. I understand why people want to kill themselves, but it's easy to kill oneself, and it's all right if they want to kill themselves, but what happens to those people who are left behind? And they don't have future. They have so much agony. So if we live and we support each other and share our agony, that would be fine, but still it's so hard to live. I can't go back. I have parents, 90-year-old and 85-year-old. They would never have a permanent place to live. Without any hope, they just wait for dying. And ending a life like that would be very sad. But with the money I have, I can't build a house elsewhere. My husband used to work for TEPCO, so we got money paid by TEPCO, so I don't want to say bad things about TEPCO so much. Those people who moved to Iwaki, they built nice houses, and they are criticized, and people in Iwaki from people originally from Iwaki, they don't think good about those people, but they have enough money. That's why they built nice houses, and they have good living right now in Iwaki. But for those of us who do not have money, we have no hope, and we can't build houses in Iwaki.
And so from this response, I can really see clearly the situation of structural violence and the neglect by the society. I think it is so clear. Next example 2. It is a case of a voluntary evacuee from Koriyama city of Fukushima Prefecture to Aomori Prefecture. This is a case of a 36-year-old male, and he evacuated voluntarily, but he was describing his pain after one of his relatives committed suicide after a divorce. And I understand very well the feelings of those who committed suicide. I have come close to it myself. My cousin committed suicide 1 year and a few months ago. Like myself, he became an evacuee because of the nuclear accident. Later, he divorced and in the end committed suicide. His memorial photo reminds me of myself. We had no choice. Even now, I hate TEPCO. TEPCO has committed manslaughter. So due to the radiation contamination, there is a situation where young parents cannot raise their children with peace of mind, and yet the government and Fukushima Prefecture is showing the propaganda about the safety and security. And so he says, repeatedly they speak of safety and security, yet until those improved safety conditions are reached, their talk is meaningless. I want to go back to a safe hometown. So I don't think we can ever go back to where we were. So I would like the government not to avoid the responsibility and take the responsibility. Japan's constitution assures preeminent respect for the human person rather than companies or the state. Nonetheless, Japan is protecting TEPCO and the country above the human person. It is a deplorable situation. I'm worried about the future of such a country. So his relative had such a dire situation to kill himself. And so the policies surrounding the compensation is working towards these people as structural violence and the social violence, and forcing people to make such a desperate decision to kill themselves. And we can see that from this description. And last example 3. This is a case of mother, children, evacuee. 37-year-old female evacuated from Futaba town in Iwaki to Iwaki with her children. And she just got divorced just before the disaster and became an evacuee with her 2 children. And due to the intense psychological pressure, she had suicidal thoughts. And several times she thought to go back to their hometown of Futaba to commit suicide. She was in a very difficult mental state. This is her comment. I would like to die. I would like to be killed. There's no sense of living in my life. Rather, I am thinking of organ donation. In any case, I would like to disappear. I understand the feelings of longing for suicide. I myself have thought of going back to Futaba and kill myself. Then my children's faces appear to me. I can't do it. Next year, my elder daughter will be a sophomore. It is enough. Please allow me to die. I got divorced 4 months before the disaster. Instead of the monetary support for raising our children, I remained living at the house, which was still in his name, my husband's name, because of loan payment still going on, and he would take care of the home loan repayments. He promised after the loan payment would be complete, he would change the title deeds to our son. But after he got the monetary compensation, I have not heard from him. He is evading me. I told this to TEPCO, to the lawyer. they said that sometimes this happens. I wish they would do something about it. Now, evacuee, the word evacuee, I hate it, and I will get harassed by that. I came here, Iwaki City, and worked part-time at nighttime family mart so I could look after my children during the daytime. I do receive some compensation money. Though I am living in this way, people say, treat me to dinner, you're getting rich. I got this kind of, or lend me money. I get this kind of verbal harassment at work, uncomfortable, foolish words. Therefore, I quit because I became afraid to work. I can't work now. I would like to go into my conclusion. So the circumstances of the victims of the nuclear accident leads us to conclude that there's a social abuse by structural violence. And in the statistical study, too, in addition to the psychological impact, economic and social difficulties are compounding the problems, and in combination, it is worsening the situation to lead to the PTSD. So it is indeed the social abuse by structural violence. And the word social abuse is the case of hindered, the victims are hindered from integrating social activities, getting into neglect, isolation, the social exclusion, and leaving, and all the roots of their livelihood were deprived, and also the policy decision to support them is in fact working as a structural violence, and making the basically raping the lives of the people who are affected by the accident, and also the negative experience in the place of evacuation, leading to harassment upon identifying themselves as the evacuee. They hide themselves. They hide the fact that they are evacuees, and they then, because of that, they are isolated from all the support, and they are forcing themselves to put themselves in the situation of social violence, and this is would require legal support so that this kind of injustice can be addressed. And this is the paper I wrote on the topic. And this is available on the website of the symposium. So now my presentation is close to the last one of the publication in this page in Iwanami. Thank you.